is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Geek Boutique podcast. My name is JS. Over here is my compadre, Geoffrey. Aka? No. Messiah Complex Cosplay.
Jesus, why don't you just mangle everything about my name?
Bud?
What I was doing right. I was doing all right up until that intro. That intro sucked. Yeah, someone's two-fisting is what we're doing today, apparently. So hello, Geeky fam. Good evening. Hey there. What's
good
going
episode
on,
tonight,
everyone? Guys? It's good to see all of you back once again for another run with the Geeks. So what are we doing today? What are we talking about today?
I think, I could be wrong, but I do believe.
I do declare.
We're doing a top 10 show tonight. That's right. We're doing a top 10. Woo, top 10s are back. Hang on. Let me do the.
Hey.
Thank you.
Really, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah. Top 10s are back, guys. Tonight we are doing top 10 geeky TV shows. Now, I know. We're going to have some arguments. We're not going to 100% agree on what is considered a geeky TV show. Jeff's definition is...
What do you mean, my definition?
Well, you were saying right up front, right in the technical difficulties pre-show, what do you qualify as a geeky TV show?
Everybody, I'd like to point out, the reason why we're doing this today is because Alan had to cancel on us. Our friend, Alan Henry, got called into work. And so I said we should do a top 10. JS said, what should we do it on? And I said sci-fi and fantasy TV shows. And this fucker decides to put up geeky shows.
Not what you said.
I will post receipts, sir. I will post a receipt.
I will do that right now for you.
You do that.
Check this out. You said specifically.
Yes. What did I say, JS? Please enlighten us.
Can I show this on screen?
Yeah, please, by all means.
You said top 10 geek nerd shows of all time.
I'm sorry. Could you read the entire? I thought you were going to put it up on the screen. You lying.
Well, I don't know if I could put the whole all the
geek / nerd sci-fi / fantasy is right in the message, guys. He's just lying to every one of you. This is what I have. Do you see what I have to put up with every goddamn week?
All right.
This is bullshit.
Yes, we're gonna try to stick to sci-fi fantasy. Like I say, I have one on my list which probably won't even make the top 10 anyway.
Good. Then what are you fighting on this for?
What? Because I like to, get you going, buddy. What else? Why else? Why else are we here?
This is what I'm talking about. Nada is still mad about our last top 10. She messaged me after I shared it to my story. She's like, I'm literally still mad about the top 10 movie quotes. I'm like, this is why we're here and doing it. I binged Fallout and whole leg. Yes, I've heard Fallout is fantastic. I've not watched it yet, but I've heard it's really good. So
I watched.
We're off to a roaring start. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I watched the first episode of Fallout, and I mean, so far, after episode 1, I'm not hating it so far. It's actually quite good.
Yeah, all I've been here. I've not heard a single person. And by the way, I've heard from people that have no idea about the property at all, and I've heard from people that are really, really into the property, and they seem to like it on both sides. So I'm still cheesed about web shooters replacing Iron Man. Yep, you're not the only one. Fallout was top tier, says Peter. That's good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out for sure. It will not be on the list today, just so we're clear. There'll be some stuff here that's recency bias, no question, but.
I think so. I think so. Although I think that a lot of my list is long running stuff for me anyway.
I think it's important. If you've not tuned into one of our top 10 lists before, we do kind of weigh a bunch of different. We don't have any criteria per se, other than the genre, but we do weigh a bunch of different things. It's not always just what was the most popular or what was the most long running or what had the most critical acclaim or what had whatever. A lot of the times we factor in impact, cultural. How much is it in the zeitgeist? The Robbie's grandma test. How well known is it globally? International, those kinds of things. It's not always just, was it good or has it been on for 60 years or whatever. In a lot of cases, it's how much has this particular show impacted your life and the life of everybody on planet Earth. So Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. You want to get us started, Mr. Jeff over there? I'm trying to get my list going here. Something's screwed up, and now I'm gonna have to,
I did what I have done the last few times. I have a really long list, and I didn't place it in any kind of an order.
I did the same. Yeah.
I've got a couple that I want to have like a real discussion about, and then I have a couple that are just like, like just hot shots, boom, that I just want to make sure get out there. I'm going to start with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
I think Buffy is a really important show. Now, it's come out since then. Joss Whedon is a bit of a piece of shit, unfortunately. I don't think that really detracts from how good Buffy was during its initial run. And I think there's certain things that are relevant today as to some of the political discourse that's going out there that Buffy was kind of like, I want to say like a front runner on, people saying now like, oh, they're only putting women in these things because it's woke and it's this and it's that. No. As long as it's good, I don't care who it is. None of that matters. You can put anybody in that particular role. In this case, what you ended up having was a show that allowed young girls to be seen, and young guys, but young girls to be seen in a way that they had really not been there before. You always had your damsel in distress for a lot of these types of shows, right? Well, Buffy is a lot of things, but a damsel in distress, she absolutely was not. She kicked ass, and she did it for a lot of seasons, and the show was just good across the board. So I think as far as importance goes, and I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to find somebody that doesn't know what Buffy the Vampire Slayer is. So,
yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you just said. Buffy, the style of show, it came out at a very appropriate time. I think the timing of Buffy was bang on. If you did that show today, it wouldn't work. I don't think. But when it came out, yeah, it was banger. It spun off not one, but I think two other shows, if I remember correctly.
Angel for sure.
Yeah, and I thought there was another one as well. Either way, it was a fantastic hit. So yeah, Buffy for sure.
Yeah.
Although mine aren't in any specific order, I think it stands to reason that some at the top of my list are the first ones that came to mind, which are obviously going to be some of my favorite. So I don't know if I want to start at the top or not.
I did not. I went about halfway down my list. So
yeah. So maybe I'll go with Stargate. And for me, specifically SG-1. Atlantis was good. Not as good as SG-1. The last one was Universe. Hot garbage. It killed the franchise, if you ask me. It was absolutely horrible. But Stargate SG-1, obviously Stargate started with the movie with Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell and
James Spader.
Thank you very much. That was my introduction to James Spader, and I've been a huge James Spader fan since. I mean, I loved him in Boston Legal. That was one of my favorite shows. James Spader and Captain Kirk playing lawyers, being silly, dude. It was dope. Either way, obviously that piqued my interest, right? I was a kid when that came out. That was like a whole new concept of an actual Stargate, an actual teleportation device that can bring you to other planets. The show made so much sense because every planet you went to was a whole new planet. It had a whole new story and a whole new reason to be there. And it was the perfect setting, I think, to replicate the success that Star Trek had with The Next Generation. And it really, for me, it wasn't as popular. It wasn't as good as Star Trek The Next Generation, but it replicated a lot of the moves that they did, and I think it worked very well. It also, like I said, spun off a bunch of series, a bunch of TV movies. I hear there's something new in development. Whether that actually happens or not, I don't know. But yeah.
I'm not going to agree with Nada. I don't think SG-1 would be top 5 sci-fi fantasy shows of all time. I personally don't feel that way. I think the show had an impact, and it was certainly popular in its demographic. I don't think it was as broad and as wide ranging as a lot of the shows that we're going to talk about today. I think it was a bit more niche than that. And for me, sometimes too, like, I know we don't count this as one of the, one of the litmus tests that we use, but for me, or one of the criteria, but a litmus test for me is how much do you see it cosplayed? How much do you really see a cosplay when you go to a con? And in this case, I have seen some Stargate cosplays, but not very many. You're allowed to be wrong, Jeff. That's cool. I appreciate it. But if you're telling me that that Stargate is bigger than Star Trek or The Mandalorian or Game of Thrones or a lot of the other shows that we're going to end up talking about a little bit later, it super isn't. It super isn't. I don't think this is a top 5 show personally.
I think the question becomes, is it bigger than Buffy?
It's a good question. I don't know. They both had spin-off shows. They were both based on a movie. Like, they're actually fairly similar properties.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me personally, I would put Buffy above Stargate, but I know there's probably people that would knife battle me for that. So I don't.
Yeah, I would be the complete opposite.
Yeah. I think Buffy's the more important of the two shows. I think Stargate did what a lot of sci-fi shows, a lot of sci-fi action network shows did. I don't think it was breaking any sort of new ground as far as what it was doing. I think Buffy broke some new ground. Buffy made it so that you could see. Are we talking cultural impact? That is always one of the things that we look at is cultural impact. You put that below Buffy, says Megan Murray. Babylon 5 top 10. That's also one of my big ones here for sure. Although that's the cultural impact, that one's going to be a tough sell, but Buffy's way better. And also, yeah, agreed. Way more important for new grounds, says Megan Murray. That's for me. That's what would put Buffy over and above Stargate.
I don't know about being way better. I would 100% disagree with that. I think Stargate was way better than Buffy, personally.
No. And that comes down to a matter of
taste.
As I don't think it'd be
grounds and
I don't think it could be argued that it was probably
100%.
Buffy, right?
Yeah. So I'll give you that one. I'll put it below Buffy. I mean, just quickly show you guys. Boom. See, it is below Buffy. Sorry, I don't have a fancy list. Jen gave me a fancy list, and I can never get it to freaking work. So
Teresa, hello. How you doing?
Oh, hi, Teresa.
Our good friend Teresa is tuned in. It's so good to see you. We miss you terribly.
Mm-hmm.
And our good buddy Michael. No one's talking about that Cylon show for cultural impact. We haven't even guys. We're 2 shows in and you guys are spanking us on other shit. I need you to settle down. Head injury. The name escapes me. Yeah. Boom shakalaka, says Sam. Do we keep things weird? Like, do we keep things kind of on the fringe, or do we go for the jugular and find? Yeah, I was gonna say fringe. Fringe. I'm not saying fringe. By the way, I fucking loved fringe. No, it's not. I love fringe. It's not an all time. It's not an all time. It was good. It's not an all timer. I don't think personally.
I don't know. I feel like if you go back and watch that show, I have a feeling it still holds very, very well.
I'm sure it does. Conceptually, it was fantastic, and it was executed very well. It did have a hard time finding an audience, though. It wasn't a highly rated show, so I don't think impact wise it's very good. I'm going to stick with a theme, and I don't know why I don't know why I'm on a theme all of a sudden. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more sci-fi than fantasy in this. So let me hit you guys with a fantasy, and not the one you're expecting. Xena.
Oh, I never even thought of that one. Is that even real? Well, yeah, that is fantasy, I suppose.
That's absolutely fantasy. Yeah, it couldn't be any more fantasy. Xena Warrior Princess. Again, guys, another show where I don't know anybody that wasn't watching Xena when Xena was on. Other than JS, I don't know anybody that wasn't watching Xena. I think it's either
watch Xena or Hercules.
Fuck Hercules and fuck Kevin Sorbo. But I mean, I get that. But Xena, I think, did something that, exactly. I think broke a lot of ground for Buffy. No, I agree. I think Xena did something there was an obvious appeal to men because Lucy Lawless and the outfits they put her in and everything else. But at the same time, it didn't seem like it was that objectionable. It didn't seem like it was that objectifying because she was still out there kicking all kinds of ass. So I felt like women could still identify with her, but they clearly had something there for men to watch as well, especially, like David saying, every young man's fantasy. I don't know, man. Xena hit the zeitgeist, and it's funny because I think she first appeared on Hercules, and as soon as she was on the screen, everybody was like, well, fuck this Hercules guy. Like, who gives a shit anymore? And his show died pretty much right out. I think they tried to bring him onto her show a couple times, and everybody's like, nobody gives a shit. The gays love Xena as well. Well, there's a whole other demographic
for sure was spun off of Hercules, but was
Yes.
way more successful than Hercules, I think.
Very much so. I agree.
I
I would agree. Now, where does it go on a top 10? Yeah, I do remember Hercules being on Xena a few times. So here's my confession to you is I saw Hercules first, and I actually enjoyed those shows when they came out. Because I think they were set up like almost like TV movies or like, I don't think it was like a regular series so much, the Hercules ones. Were they?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I thought they had like, anyways, regardless, I enjoyed the Hercules show. I didn't know that Kevin Sorbo was a giant dumb piece of shit, but I mean, I did enjoy Hercules. But yeah, as soon as Xena came out and her and what was the girl, the blonde girl's name? Gabrielle, I think. Yeah, dude. That's come on, man. That's pre-internet, man. That's prime time. That's like puberty Jeff hitting that prime time. Come on, man. Not puberty Jeff, but you know what I'm saying. Pre-internet Jeff. Come on, man. Gabrielle, that's the one. Yeah. Of course, the gays loved Xena because there was basically like a secret, not so secret lesbian relationship right on the television set. Like it was like a legit 6'2" or something. Lucy had to stand on boxes to be taller. Yeah. No, dude, that's Xena, man. Xena above Buffy is what David's saying. I binge watched Xena during my surgery recovery.
We've got people saying Xena above Buffy, and then we've got other people saying Buffy above Xena. I don't really have
Buffy above Xena. Come on, Megan. Megan's a huge Buffy fan, so Xena above Buffy is saying Nada. Yeah. This one's tough, man. I don't know. It was a very popular show. If it's me, it's Buffy Xena. I'm sorry, that's what it is.
Really?
Yeah, okay. I think so. Okay. Personally.
I mean, I'm cool with that. I mean, like I said, I didn't really watch
Buffy for the win, Xena Buffy. Yeah. I'm glad that this is getting some conversation going though. That's good.
Season 6, a lot of people saying
Xena. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying Xena over Buffy. But then we've got other people saying Buffy over Xena.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, Jeff cut the cheese, I guess, and made it Buffy over Xena. So there you go. You can go after him. Buffy
below Buffy, but depending on the age group, I think I go for Xena first, but I know others who would say Buffy. Yeah, 1-1A type deal. No, I agree.
What do we go to next? I have so many on my list. I don't even know.
Well, we don't have to have a huge, like, there could be some where we could just, like, some of them are going to be self-explanatory. Like, some we're not going to have a huge diatribe about, right? Mm-hmm. So,
well, you know what? Let me talk about this one that for me is a little bit of the off one, and then we can get it out of the way right now. And it's Chuck.
I never watched Chuck. I don't know.
Oh my God.
I didn't. Was there a fantasy or sci-fi element to it? I thought he was just like a secret agent or something, wasn't he? Or something?
Oh, no. So he's got a computer and basically downloaded a program into his head to turn him into a super spy. And it's like tapping into the Matrix, right? He can learn how to kung fu and he can like kinds of things.
Chuck was discount Fringe is what Peter is saying.
No, not at all. It wasn't remotely close to the same thing. Fringe was a team of people trying to solve all these mysteries along the way that eventually brought us to the multiverse, right? Where there were different versions of them and they could start crossing over. That got a little bit weird. I'm not going to lie. When they got to that point, I was like, that was the last season, I think. But Chuck works at the Buy More for the Nerd Herd. So he's basically a geek squad at the Best Buy, right? And it's all a happenstance that he gets this program downloaded into his brain. And then all of a sudden you've got the CIA and the NSA that are trying to get him. And anyway, listen, it's a genius show. It's funny as hell. Zachary Levi is Chuck.
I know that. I've never watched it, but I don't have any real.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a sitcom. First of all, it was a comedy, but it wasn't like a half-hour sitcom style. It was like a proper 1-hour TV show comedy, right? Bob says never heard of Chuck. Peter Jarvis says underrated but not great. Oh, I loved it.
Chuck is like sleeper agent, but he's a geek who always freaked out by it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
Either way.
Where
I
would
don't
you
think
put it
it's
on the
going
list?
to end up cracking the top 10. So right now it's going to go right at the bottom. I don't think it's going to crack the top 10, but it's going to go right now at number 4, and it'll end up wherever it ends up, I suppose.
I feel like we're already 20 minutes in. If we don't start getting some of the heavy hitters out there, it's going to end up being a problem.
Shoot.
So I'm going to hit one that I only thought of at the last minute, but again, it's another one of those trailblazing ones that I don't think we'd have a lot of shows without it. The X-Files.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, same thing. I think it's the X-Files. The X-Files feels to me like Game of Thrones felt when Game of Thrones came out. It felt like anyone was watching the X-Files. It ended up being something that, like, you talk about your water cooler talk at work. I don't remember what day the X-Files came out on TV or whatever on Fox, but like the next day, everybody's talking about the weird, crazy fucking shit you saw in X-Files last night. So V, Outer Limits, Twilight Zone. Yeah, all 3 of those are on my list, guys, but I don't know how much of those would actually get on. If the Twilight Zone is not on there, that would be crazy, but V, I didn't say it first. I don't know, man. The X-Files was huge. It was a cultural icon. It had a couple of spin-off movies. It had a reunion show. It's still getting parodied to this day. Like, as soon as you say Scully and Mulder, everybody knows exactly what the fuck you're talking about. So
yeah.
Yeah,
I would say that in this list that we have now, X-Files would go right to number 1 for me.
I would agree. I think you'd be hard to argue against the cultural impact that the X-Files had.
All right, I'm glad you agree, because I'm not even going to bother reading the comments. There you go. X-Files is our new number 1. All right.
Peter, I have mentioned Red Dwarf on this program several times. Unfortunately, it's a very niche show, so it's
Red
not going to
Dwarf
make the
was
list.
a good show.
I loved Red Dwarf, dude.
It was a little bit weird, but I loved it. But yeah, I don't think. Yeah, it was a UK show, wasn't it?
David, I am not going to repeat that, but you're not wrong, sir.
Where do we go now?
I don't know. It's your turn.
Is it my turn?
Yep.
I mean, I feel like if this one doesn't make the top 10, I don't know what will. This show has now had like 15 freaking seasons. It's probably one of the most watched fantasy TV shows of all time, and it's Supernatural.
Yeah, there's no way we're doing this list and not having Supernatural on. We
Yeah.
get fucking lynched. You would see our numbers just plummet if we were like, nah, fuck Supernatural. We're not doing that shit. We would have angry people. It wouldn't just be one angry Rob. It would be like several angry mobs coming to our house.
Yes, our doors would get beaten down.
Yeah, no.
You know, I will admit that I kind of fell off of Supernatural. I only got through, I think, about 7 or 8 seasons before it was like, okay, I've had enough. Is it still running? I think it ended like last year or a couple years ago.
No, it's ended a few years ago. Yeah. Because they've both gone off and done other things. Like Jensen Ackles been on The Boys. Jared Padalecki, I think, is doing Walker, new Walker, Texas Ranger or whatever. So no, the show is finally over after 15 seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, great show. I like I said, at one point it got repetitive and I kind of fell off, but you cannot deny the impact that this show has had. Like I said, it just ended a couple years ago. Clearly people are still talking about it. I would be very, very surprised if we don't see more of Supernatural in one way or another.
Well, it did have a spinoff called The Winchesters that Natasha's talking about here, but I think that's
there you go.
I don't think that's on anymore.
Well, either way, I think we're going to get more from that universe. And again, for me, at this point where we are, I think it needs to go at number 1. But what do you think?
This one's tough for me, man. Like this one, I'm going to have to kind of rely on you guys in the chat. I've never been able to get through Supernatural. I usually get about halfway through the first season, and I'm just like, I'm so fucking bored right now. I know I've been told like pick up on it by season 3 or season 4. I've had people tell me like start watching at season 5 or something. Like it's crazy town, but I don't know. Christina, almost 24 minutes in. Where's Battlestar? My love, you know how this format works. We each say a show and then we talk about it and rate it. Like it's like there's only so many minutes, and we've been on for 24 minutes. We talked about May the 10th for the first 10, and you guys are spanking me over individual shows we haven't said yet. Do you really think Battlestar Galactica isn't on my list? Of course it is. Give us a break, man.
Guys, by the way, we're gonna take a quick break here. Supernatural is the pick.
No, I will not.
Before we move on and rate and actually decide where it's going to go, May the 4th if you guys are going to be in London on Saturday morning, come downtown, dress up in your Star Wars costume, come downtown. We're going to be promoting the event. The folks at Free Comic Book Day are hoping to see some Star Wars cosplayers. So we're going to try to plan to, as many of us as possible, show up in our Star Wars cosplays, especially if you're already going to be there in the morning. If you know people that are going to also be in the London area in the morning, get them to come as well. Like, the more people we are, I think the better. We're going to try to take some pictures and, like I said, promote Star Wars Day event at Free Comic Book Day. Oh, and make sure you click that damn like and subscribe button, because there's a lot more of you watching than there were likes last week. I'm watching you guys.
Damn, I'm free that day. Make sure you check out our raffle too for the Captain Rex helmet. Very cool.
Well, there you go.
What time? We're going to try to get down there, Native, for around 10 o'clock for downtown London on Saturday for Free Comic Book Day. I don't know how long each of us are going to be staying. I'm going to try to get out of there by noon at the latest, because I have to get back to London Brewing Co-op to help the vendors and help decorate and all that kind of jazz, get ready for our launch 3 o'clock. So
maybe like 10 to noon type deal, right?
Something like that. Or is it too late to ask for a ride out to London? I don't know, Andre. I don't know where you are. So if anybody wants to contact Andre and see if you can carpool and knock yourselves out. Nice. We're hoping to be out there super early. Hope we can make it to Free Comic Book Day. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun in London. London doesn't fuck around for Free Comic Book Day. Like, we make it a big deal.
Shut the street down, and it's something.
It's a thing. So
yeah.
Be there and be square. 3 o'clock, by the way, for London Brewing Co-op, as we've already mentioned. Vendors, I'll have all 10 vendors now. Everybody's paid their table fees. I'm going to go to the venue tomorrow. Like I said, I'm going to take a bunch of pictures to show off you guys what this is going to look like. Yeah, we have our own beer coming again, this time with a fancy label. There's going to be merch. There's going to be raffles. There's going to be bingo. There's going to be trivia. There's going to be a live band. It's going to be amazing. Bye, David. Good to see you. Anyways, Supernatural. On that list, number 2.
You think?
I mean,
below X-Files?
That's what I would say. I'm one man. I'm sure I could be convinced. I
mean, the X-Files was very innovative for its time. We never had anything like that before.
There probably
like Supernatural was on for way, right? Well, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
A mystery of the week, a Scooby-Doo mystery of the week is kind of, I mean, that's the basis for a lot of shows. Don't get me wrong, but in this particular case, I think it's probably X-Files walked, so Supernatural.
They're very similar in that manner. Yes.
Yeah. Christina saying number 5 and Top Cosplay saying number 1. We're all over the map on this one, kids. It probably depends on if you've watched it or not, especially if you've seen a lot of it in its entirety. But balls, I got to run. Love you all. Hope to see you soon. Thanks, Peter. Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I think I haven't watched the show, but even I can't deny they have supernatural conventions. Like they have conventions that are just based on supernatural. So I mean, the impact that the show has had on the zeitgeist, I think can't be. I think it's very specific to a very a core group of a core age group. I think there's one particular age, kind of like some of the other shows we're gonna talk about, like Star Trek or whatever. There's one particular age group that fucking loves the show and lives it, and then there's age groups on either side that barely even know what it is and never watched a single episode of it. But that group, it's their whole lives. Like there's people have tattoos and shit. So it's like,
I will say this: how many times have you seen Mulder's POS? You know what's it called? That police interceptor. The Crown Vic. Yeah, he drove an old school POS Crown Vic. How many times have you seen that at a convention?
Oh no, but I've seen the Supernatural car all kinds of times. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you want to make the argument that it should be number 1, I'm sure we can do that. I can't argue one way or another. I've watched all the X-Files several times. I have not watched all of Supernatural.
And that's fair. And I have not watched all of Supernatural either. Although I will say I did not watch the the X-Files reunion. You know when they came back, and I can't remember if it was like a short season, or
it was like 6 episodes.
Or there you go. Yeah, I didn't watch that.
That's fair. But if you guys think, guys, it doesn't. There's going to be other shows we're going to mention, and I guarantee you, that's probably the only ever top 10 list where JS and I will probably have the same number 1 in mind.
Yeah.
I'd be
You wanna
really
go through
shocked
it?
if we didn't.
Do you want to go
We
through it?
can. We
Yeah.
can, but do you want to, are we going to settle on Supernatural at
Do you
2?
want to say it together?
Sure.
Go. Okay. 1, 2,
2, 3.
3. The
Star
Expanse.
Trek. You son of a bitch.
Yeah. I mean, listen, guys. I think everybody that knows us knows we are huge Trekkies. There is no getting away from that. I'll even say that I'm somewhat enjoying season 5 of Discovery. I'll give you that, Jeff.
Attaboy.
The last episode was a little but the first 2 were pretty good. First one was actually very good.
First one was killer. Yeah, first one.
Second one was good. Third one, man, hopefully they pick it back up. Either way, I've been watching Star Trek since before I can remember.
Yep.
I come, and I've probably told this story many times, but I come from Quebec, a small country town in Quebec, where when I grew up, we didn't even have cable. So all we had for TV channels were these 2 French stations, and then we had CBC in English. And in French on Saturday morning, you would get old reruns of the original series. So I would watch Star Trek, the original series, in French in the morning. But on CBC, I would then watch another show that I think I've told you before that we're going to talk about in a minute. So those were the 2 earliest like sci-fi shows that I remember watching.
I can't believe you did me dirty. I can't believe we were going to do it at the same time.
Yeah, and you didn't say it. You waited for me to say it first.
Terrible.
I did you dirty.
Terrible.
By
the way, I am.
We are lumping all of Star Trek.
Yeah. I know Nada's probably like DS9, and Nada, you're super wrong.
No, 100% correct. DS9 is the peak Trek. Yeah. What do you mean? No.
Super isn't. It's ridiculous. But again, like we've talked about with the rest of them, like want to talk about walk so it could fly. Yeah, X-Files walks so Supernatural could fly. All of Star Trek since 1966 has been flying because Star Trek walked in 1966. So I mean, I understand it's before all of our times and everything else. Fuck you guys, it is still before my time, so you can all eat a dick. But honestly, I don't even know, like, what could you even possibly come up with as an argument against Star Trek? So, yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, change the font, bold, underline, italics. Like, come on, man. Like, it spawned so many different TV series. It spawned what do we have to do? 13 movies or 4, something ridiculous number of movies. There's no way that you could quantify that. You can't have this and not say it's Star Trek. I'm so sorry. I don't know what else would even be close to Star. Like we could do a top 10 Star Treks for God's sakes. If you counted all the TVs and movies. Like there's no dude, there's nothing. You can The Expanse, you son of a bitch. Great show, by the way, The Expanse. Great show. Not a top 10, great show.
You don't think The Expanse is top 10?
Top 10, well done. Sci-fi TV shows, 100%. Top 10, like all time? No, sir. No, hardly anybody watched it. That's the shit part about it. But it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a great show.
No, it was so good.
Show. What was your first exposure to Star Trek?
Same. We only had the one TV in the house, and our TV had a remote. Hi, it's me. I'm
really?
No, I was the remote. I had to go.
I was going to say, how fucking loaded were you guys?
No. So in our house, especially with my dad, there was like 4 shows. 60 Minutes, Sunday Night Football, well, all day Sunday Football, MASH, and Star Trek. Those were the shows that were pretty much constantly on all the time because Star Trek was in syndication by then. So there was it seemed like there was never a time you wouldn't turn the TV on and Star Trek wasn't on in some way, shape, or form. You could almost watch it daily. So growing up, that's all I got all the time was Star Trek all the time. And I don't know, man, it just came out. TV came out when you were what, 30? Shut up. It just galvanized you. It just hits like, it's like I'm talking about like 78 or 79 is probably when I would have started watching it as a kid. In 78 or 79, Star Trek is fucking killer. It's baller. And then the first real movie that I identified with that I loved so much that I watched over and over and over and over again was Wrath of Khan. We had a cheater box, and it was back when you had in Canada, they were called First Choice and Super Channel, and they were like the pay TV channels. We had a black box that got those channels, and Wrath of Khan was on one of them. I want to say First Choice, and it was on all the time. And every time it was on, I'm watching Wrath of Khan. So, and it just was like, okay, this is my life now. I'm just going to be into Star Trek for the rest of my life. And
fantastic movie.
Here we are. So
I mean, it's we're clearly talking about TV shows here, not movies, but fantastic movie. Replicon is art.
Awesome. All right, we got the big one out of the way.
Alrighty.
Whose turn is it?
I don't actually know whose.
You said Supernatural, and then we said Star Trek together. So we'll say Star Trek was me. So you go.
So technically my turn. So I'm gonna say Doctor Who.
Yep.
Doctor Who was another one of those shows where, again, that other show that I would watch on CBC was Doctor Who. Doctor Who back in the days was co-produced with CBC, so we would get the episodes. And I remember watching black and white Doctor Who's, like first and second Doctors.
William Hartnell and whoever the second guy was.
Oh yeah, that was I remember specifically the first TARDIS control room. That was so, oh wow, this is so cool. Like, this is so alien, but not. And yeah, there was something about the Doctor, which, don't get me wrong, I wasn't into Doctor Who into my teenage years. I was into Doctor Who when I was a kid. I really never picked Doctor Who back up until the new Doctor Who.
Sure.
2009, is that when the new season came out? The new stuff
I'm
came
almost
out?
positive is when the reboot, the Eccleston is 2009.
Eccleston. That's when I came back into Doctor Who, although I wasn't the hugest fan of Eccleston.
Right. Well, he was only one season, so
he was only one season. David Tennant was my Doctor. And then I have a problem with them switching doctors. Like, I have a serious emotional issue.
Of course, you get attached to the character.
When they switch doctors, to the point where I stopped watching, and I've done it again. And when Tennant went away and Matt Smith came along, I didn't watch forever. I don't think it was until Matt Smith's last season that I went back and I watched it all, and I fucking loved him. And then I was like, "What the fuck? They're already getting rid of him." So I stopped watching, and then
I don't think any of the new ones have lasted more than 3 seasons.
No.
I think they kind of have a hard stop on them after 3 seasons. I don't think any one of them's been on more. I mean, they brought Tennant back, but I mean, still.
Tennant was on for 4 originally. He had 4 seasons. And then they've brought him back a couple times. This last one that they brought him back for was amazing. I thought that was great how they brought him back. I didn't, unfortunately, see the conclusion. I still have to go back and watch that, but I haven't watched anything. Toxic Foxes, I haven't watched anything with Capaldi in it because I was so attached to Matt Smith. I had, again, same problem. When Matt Smith went away, I didn't want to watch Capaldi. And then one day I just came across an episode with Capaldi and I was like, oh, this guy's actually really good. And then I watched Capaldi. And then since Capaldi has left, I haven't watched another episode of Doctor Who until I watched the current Christmas special, which wasn't a Christmas special. It was the 60th anniversary, like the 4-parter or whatever it was, which I only watched the first 2.
Okay. Let me weigh in on this.
Yeah.
Let me piss off a bunch of nerds, including you. I love Doctor Who. Don't misunderstand me. It is still something of a niche. It is still
100%.
I don't consider Doctor Who to be like a super mainstream, especially with the young. I find the majority of people that like Doctor Who are a little bit older because it's been on for so long. So while I appreciate the impact it's had, its longevity is unmatched. It's literally been on for 60 years. Like, there's no other. Star Trek, I think, is about the only thing that's even close to that, right? So, you can't argue with that, but at the same time, it, like I said, it's kind of like one of those, like, it is still niche. It is still like on the fringe. We're not in England. If we were in England, this is number 1, right? Or number 2, but we're not. So, like, for me on this list, yeah, it's like 4 or 5. It's probably about halfway down the list.
What?
It's not
on
3
this list?
Yeah, you think it's bigger than Supernatural?
I think it's bigger than the X-Files.
Not a chance,
dude. It's been on for 60 years.
Yeah, I know, but it's had a like a fringe audience for 60 years. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying it's not as well known, well regarded, or popular on this side of the pond as it's been on 60 years because it's been produced in England for 60 years because it's super popular in England. We eat in England, son. I'm just saying, I don't think it's as
I need
popular here.
everybody's back up here. Like, come on, guys, like weigh in on this because this is straight bullshit.
Well, if you'll notice, there haven't been many comments about this. Would you like to know why? Because not very many people watch Doctor Who. I'm sorry. It's not Star Trek. It's not Star Wars. It's not Supernatural. It's not the X-Files. It's not any of those shows that had huge followings here on this side of the pond. It's more of a niche show. And I know that's making you, I told you it was going to make you mad. You knew we were going to fight this episode. This is the fight we're going to have. And I like the show. I've watched a lot of it. I have watched. Pull
up my fucking lightsaber here, bud.
Never seen one Doctor Who.
Smack you.
It's more of a niche show. I love our folks at the Doctor Society whenever we're there doing it, but yeah, I'm a solid 5 on this list for it. Yeah, it's just one of those things where you either know it or you don't, and I feel like there's a lot more people that don't know it than do.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So
where do you see it?
Yeah, 4 or 5. Yeah, it's not higher than 4. It's my TARDIS tattoo and I are feeling personally attacked. This Toxic Fox. Yeah, I'm sure if Debbie were to tune into the actual podcast, she'd be losing her fucking mind right now.
Yeah, how many X-Files and Supernatural and Buffy and Xenobooths are you seeing at?
I'm not seeing any. No. I'm and I think if they weren't doing what they do for the cause that they had and they didn't have the amazing props that they did, I don't think you'd be seeing those either. I'd like to point out that the main guy that we know that's Dalek Axel is British. It's a very British show. And we're not British. We're not even a British colony anymore. So I'm just saying, man,
So where do you want it?
As I said, well, it's your pick, but I am going to have a real problem if it's above 4. It's got to be below Supernatural. Okay. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Every time Buffy gets bumped down, Megan's heart breaks a little bit more, but justice for who, says Instant Onion. Yeah. I'm a fan, guys, but it's more of a, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, that's right. See, Megan's
actually, you guys talked to them. Yeah.
No,
that's what I'm saying. So, I'm just saying, I love the Doctor Who people. They're lovely, but at the end of the day,
all right.
Oh,
what's your next pick?
Well, since I seem to be still the only one that's picking fantasy shows, I feel like it's finally time to talk about the fantasy show that changed television forever. Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can have a discussion about these types of shows and not bring up Game of Thrones, as much as it sucked especially the last season. Some would say the last 2, some would say the last 3. There was no bigger show on television, and it changed the way we watch TV. It changed the way TV was made. HBO showed that you could have long form, big budget storytelling and capture a massive audience. You had cast of hundreds. You had dozens of storylines going on at once, and there was no show that was talked about more. Lost has not been mentioned yet, Sam. No show was talked about more at the time around the water cooler than Game of Thrones. Websites were dedicated to annotating Game of Thrones for people just so they would understand what the fuck was going on, because there were so many characters and so many storylines. And of course, the books were popular, but not like the show. Like the show was. Now, what's funny is after season 8, that show's presence in the culture fell off a fucking cliff. Like it went from a show that everybody talked about constantly to nobody talking about it.
Yeah, but it went.
But it's important
right back up with
House of the Dragon. Yeah. So we don't get House of the Dragon, and frankly, there's probably, if someone sat down and figured it out, you could probably come up with at least, I'm going to say 40 or probably even 50 shows that would not exist today if it wasn't for Game of Thrones. Just showing you could throw by a streamer doing a big budget, long form story, serialized television show that basically looked like a movie every week. Game of Thrones broke that ground, and it's. So I was going to mention this too. Andre Ferguson talking about it. There were literally 2 camps of people. There were people, the 90% of the people that were watching Game of Thrones, and then there were people that would shout from the rooftops that they were one of the few that was not watching Game of Thrones. Like they would wear it like a badge of honor that they weren't watching Game of Thrones. That's how ridiculously popular that show was. And yeah, we wouldn't have, Super wouldn't have Witcher. You wouldn't have most of I don't think you'd have Stranger Things. There's a bunch of shows that you could name that you wouldn't have.
I think Game of Thrones, what Game of Thrones did is not only was it a fantastic show, it was the sheer scale and budget, I think, that changed the way that streaming services were producing TV shows.
Yep.
This was the first time a streaming service was dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into a TV show, not a movie.
No.
A TV show for a streaming service. That was never heard of before, right?
And by the way, this was still HBO, so it wasn't even a streaming service yet.
Well,
it was
fair
just
enough.
a premium channel television.
You're right.
But still, crazy town. Crazy how big that show got.
Yeah, the budgets that they threw at the show was like nothing ever seen before for a TV show. But now it's just a regular day in Hollywood, right? I mean, every single TV show has these massive fucking budgets now.
Yep. I think it's number 2 on that show, on that list. And I think you'd be hard pressed to argue the impact that Game of Thrones had. Plus, it was fucking brilliant. And there, by the way, there's another spinoff show coming, the Dunk and Egg stuff, the Hedge Knight. And then there's still like at least 2 or 3 more that are in development. So yeah, we're not done with Game of Thrones, guys. We're not going to be done with Game of Thrones for decades. I guarantee you. As long as the shows keep coming out and they keep being decent, like House of the Dragon is, they're just going to keep cranking these out. The only one that I know that we're not getting is the Jon Snow show. That apparently is not happening. Kit Harington recently said it's dead. But the Hedge Knight show is coming, and then there's supposed to be at least 2 or 3 other things that, they dropped the Jon Snow show. Nana's saying, There you go. Game of Thrones, man. What are you going to do? Anyways.
Alrighty. I'm gonna call it because it's been mentioned now a couple times and we haven't mentioned it, and I think it needs to be on this list, and I think it needs to make top 10, and it's Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica. Which one?
Can we say both?
Yeah, of course. We did that with Star Trek. Of course, we can do both.
And actually, let's say all 3, because technically there was the original Battlestar Galactica, then there was the mini series,
right,
which was kind of the pilot for the new show, right? Oh no, and then there was Caprica, and then there was another one too. Listen, forget about the later ones, but let's keep it to Battlestar Galactica, as in
1980 sucked. Yes, it did.
1980 sucked. I mean, I liked it as a kid. I mean, it was a fun show.
Not the year 1980, Lex. No, we get that. Yeah, Battlestar 1980. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. But the reboot was so good. They did such a good job.
Yeah.
It was so grounded. It was so dramatic. There was an emotional piece to Battlestar Galactica, I think, that we weren't used to getting out of a sci-fi type show.
Agreed.
Right? Like a sci-fi show was pew pew and not people crying and people mind fucks and the big mind fuck, the human Cylons, the skin jobs. Holy fuck! Like what? Like finding out that some of your favorite characters as you go are the best.
Cylons. Yeah. No, I agree.
Listen, that show.
Yeah,
I was into almost as much as I was into Star Trek.
Yeah, Reboot was great, but had a lost ending. Agreed, Lex. Yeah. Now, that is one of those shows where even though it was serialized and it looked like it was all pre-planned, it was not. It was like Lost, actually, because Lost has come up a couple times. They were making that show up as they went along. So I think by the time they had to finally try to wrap up an ending, they were just kind of like, well, what the fuck do we do now? So yeah, the ending was a little bit like Tim Burton Planet of the Apes weird. You know what I'm saying? Like it was that kind of a weird ending, but the journey was worth it, even if the destination wasn't as good. The journey was worth it, because I know people that don't even like sci-fi that watched Battlestar Galactica because the writing and the acting on it was so fucking good that they would get a couple episodes in. They're like, I can't stop watching. I don't even like this genre, but I can't stop watching this. So
there was a political drama piece to Battlestar that made it very, very different than anything else we've ever had before.
Agreed. Again, Battlestar walks so the Expanse could crawl or whatever, right? Like it's very similar type of show. Political discourse in between these warring factions and groups, and an ultimate goal at the end and everything else. So dude, I loved Battlestar. On this list, I'm probably putting it at like 7 or 8, I would say, in around there. I loved it, but it was like kind of like the reboot itself was kind of a moment in time. The property's been kind of dead since the reboot. I know they keep talking about doing it again.
It is
3, Lex. That's crazy. 3 is absolutely.
There's a new Battlestar reboot that's in production right now.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Now
I don't know anything about it. I don't know if it's just in development. I don't know if they've started a writer's room thing or. Yeah, 7 or 8. Yeah, that's what I would say. 3 is way too high. Lex, I love you, but there's just no way. That's way too high. We can't do that.
Okay. I picked that, didn't I?
You
I did. It's your turn.
I'm going to see shit's going to start getting pushed out that probably shouldn't get pushed out. So I got to make sure I'm getting some shit in here before it does. None of this happens without the Twilight Zone. None of it.
Yeah.
Multiple rebooted shows, a movie. Everybody knows the theme song. So many parodies, so many spin-offs. Christ, remixes of the theme song and shit. Like it was the first time that they kind of tried to fuck with your mind on TV, and they did it so very well.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say that in my list here, I wrote Twilight Zone, and then I put in brackets Black Mirror.
Yeah,
for me, Black
Mirror, Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, like it's all the same type of show.
Yeah,
where they're just trying to get in here.
Outer Limits guy myself, just because of the times, right? Yeah. The Outer Limits was more in my time.
But is there like a more influential show than the Twilight Zone when it comes to sci-fi and fantasy on television, or just mindfuckery on TV, or even movies? Like you'd be hard pressed, I think, to find a more influential show than the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, and Alex has a good point here. He's mentioning so many current stories from the Twilight Zone, and that's the thing, right? There's a lot of stuff that you see today, and you're like, oh, I remember seeing a Twilight Zone episode with this premise, right?
There's so many different ways that you can say that. Like, oh yeah, there was a Twilight Zone episode about this. Like you can name off like 100 different properties. You're like, yeah, that came from a Twilight Zone episode. Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
I use Twilight Zone as Evan, Megan Murray. Yeah. I guess the problem is with Twilight Zone is its impact early on in its life can't even be quantified. But then, yeah, it's kind of a dead property, right? Everybody knows what it is, but there's nothing inactive. And there hasn't been for a long time. I don't know the last time we got anything that was legitimately called Twilight Zone, but it's been some time.
So okay, I want to talk about this. Andre says 80s Twilight Zone mined
it sure did
climate like nothing else.
It sure did.
100%, bud. And there's one specific episode that I remember, and I don't know why, but I think about this episode often.
Was it the girl with the necklace who could stop time?
Yes.
Yeah, dude, still in here, still freaks me out to this day.
And the
episode ends
stop, he stops time, and the nuclear missile's right there.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
How the fuck did you know that?
I have goosebumps right now. I was talking about it, dude.
How the fuck did you know that?
Because that episode still lives rent free in my fucking head, and it has since it came out.
Yeah, I that episode freaked me out as a kid, dude, and I still think about it a lot.
Yep.
And like I said, I watched Fallout, the first episode of Fallout. What do you think the first thing that came through my mind when the bomb hits?
Of course.
It's the fucking Twilight Zone episode, right? Listen, I can't believe you just said that, dude. You're like,
I know.
Are we like best friends now?
Oh, I think we're best friends. Did we just become friends? Yep. Now, where to put it? Because Lex is saying 1 or 2. I've heard 7.
I don't know that it would go as high as 1 or 2.
I think this is another one of those kind of like generational things. I think if you're older like we are and you're watching TV in the 60s and 70s and 80s, you're probably very familiar with the property. But if you didn't start watching TV, or you weren't born until the 90s or late 90s and all the way up through the 2000s, you're probably not that familiar with it as a property. You have no idea who Rod Serling is. So its initial cultural impact cannot be denied, but its current place in the zeitgeist has dwindled dramatically. So
Megan's saying here, Twilight Zone only went till 1964. Actually, it didn't. It had many reboots over the years.
The original Twilight Zone went to 64.
The original Twilight Zone, but then there was a Twilight Zone through the 80s. There was another Twilight Zone through the early 2000s. There was even a new Twilight Zone just a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember that being. I didn't catch that one, but yeah,
it didn't last very long. This latest one.
The Shadow Man still fucks them up. Yeah, they have one in 2019. Lex is saying, yeah, on this list, man, that's tough.
For me, I kind of think it goes roughly like Doctor Who territory.
5, 6. Yeah, that's kind of where I was looking at.
For me, is kind of like I prefer Doctor Who over Twilight Zone. I think there's no denying that without the Twilight Zone, a lot of these other shows that we're seeing probably wouldn't be happening.
No.
I'm not saying the Twilight Zone impacted Doctor Who because it probably came out before the Twilight Zone. Actually, I know it did, but no, you don't think so?
If the Twilight Zone ended in 64 and Doctor Who just
then,
celebrated their
yeah.
60th, no, it was definitely up beforehand.
Then yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So on that merit alone, I might put it over Doctor Who, but for me, Doctor Who is a bigger show than the Twilight Zone. I mean, I can't deny that. So I'll let you cut that one.
Tim saying I never catch this live watching Twilight Zone over Buffy. Oh yeah, that footage, the accident on the movie set is.
Oh yeah.
Don't guys look at me.
Don't go look at it. You know what? Let's not even talk about that.
Don't go watch that. That's horrific.
On.
I would be. You know what? If I'm being perfectly honest with you, if you put that at 4, I wouldn't be mad. But it's got to be at least 5. I think 6 is too low.
Yeah, I mean,
I
might.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
But same thing. There's no Supernatural without Twilight Zone. There's no X-Files without Twilight Zone. There's probably no Doctor Who without Twilight Zone. Like that's all. They're all just not cheap ripoffs of the Twilight Zone, but you know what I mean. Like they all got us there first. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm putting it above Supernatural, but it could be at any one of those spots for me.
Yeah, that's true. That one is tough to quantify because it's just been around. It hasn't been around for so long, but when it was there was nothing like it. So, anyways,
especially in the 80s. The 80s version of the Twilight Zone was so popular. That's all people could talk about. Like I said, people knew the friggin' theme song.
Yeah,
like
but even in the 50s, man, like when Rod Serling was hosting it in the 50s, like that's true. Like remember, there's like 3 channels and people are there's such a chunk of the population was watching it at the time because there wasn't really hardly anything else to do. Anyways, your turn, sir. I've only got a couple here that I think
Andre says that freaky Twilight Zone episode is on YouTube, by the way. It's called A Little Peace and Quiet, directed by none other than fucking Wes Craven.
I didn't know that.
No fucking wonder that episode freaked me out.
No shit.
Much.
No Tales of the Crypt of the Twilight Zone. We could have an entire show talking about shows that were influenced by the Twilight Zone, directly or indirectly. Like, there's not. Yeah.
Okay. Whose turn is it now?
Hell, there might not even been a Star Trek. You know why? Because William Shatner got his start on the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, he did.
So
he did.
Wes was genius. Rip. Yep, agreed.
Yeah,
I picked Twilight Zone, so it's your choice, sir. I've only got a couple left that I think would even have a shot of making it. So
yeah, I mean,
and we didn't want to say Twilight Zone / Black Mirror. We're not going to put Black Mirror on the same.
No, exactly.
Same with Outer Limits, guys. Like that's all the same show essentially. So
I wanna name a couple here out loud that maybe we can talk about for a minute, but that I don't think are going to make the list.
Oh, good. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to feel like that too. Yes.
Yeah. For one, this one is absolutely not a sci-fi fantasy show. But I don't think there is any bigger geeky show than The Big Bang Theory. I mean, I get it's not a sci-fi, it's not a fantasy, but The Big Bang Theory is a show about us, literally. If you've not watched The Big Bang Theory, go watch the fucking Big Bang Theory because it's a fantastic show. So there you go. So that's one. The Orville. Now, The Orville for me totally falls into the Star Trek category, even though it's not technically Star Trek. The story goes that I forget his name now.
Seth MacFarlane.
Thank you. Seth MacFarlane went to Paramount, CBS, whoever owned Star Trek at that point, wanting to make his own Star Trek show. They turned him down. They said, no, what do you mean a Star Trek comedy? Get the fuck out of our offices. And then they promptly turned around and made Lower Decks, but that's beside the points. He decided, well, then fine, I'll go to another studio and I'll make my own Star Trek. And that's what he did with The Orville. And for a long time, like the first 2 seasons of The Orville were better than whatever Star Trek we were getting on TV at that time. So a lot of people freaking loved it. It was fan-fucking-tastic. Now, this is probably one of my favorite shows of all time. It also had its own movie, which I thought was a good movie, but a little weird how they kind of tried to retcon the show with the movie. And it is Firefly.
I fucking love Firefly.
And
I love Serenity. How did you not like Serenity?
Well, it's not that I didn't like Serenity. It's that they tried to retell the story.
Because they gave Joss the option of doing a second season of the show on television or do a movie, and he chose to do the movie.
And that
so
was
he
dumb.
tried to compact an entire second season of television into a 2-hour movie, which I don't even think was even 2 hours. But I saw Serenity first. And I was like, this is great.
Really?
Based on something. And then I was like, oh, it's based on the show called Firefly. And then I watched Firefly, and then Firefly became my whole fucking life.
Yeah, I love Firefly, man. What a great show.
The argument for Firefly and against Firefly, obviously, is like literally it was canceled halfway through its very first season. And the only thing it got after that was a movie that bombed. So yeah, guys, the first cosplay I ever did was Jane Cobb from Firefly. Like I live and fucking breathe that show. I've watched those 13 episodes. I don't know how many times, and like dozens of times I've watched those 13 episodes. It's not a top 10 show, guys. It just isn't. I wish it was, but I don't think it replaces any of those 10.
No. Another one that I think bears mentioning and is a personal favorite of yours. That again, I don't know that makes the top 10. I don't think makes the top 10 is Babylon 5.
Yes. Yeah.
Babylon 5 is one of those shows where it's had a bunch of books. It's had spin-off shows. It's had made for TV movies. I mean, fuck. I've even heard there was a Babylon 5 reboot in the work, but that was a couple years ago now. So I'm assuming that's probably done.
J. Michael Straczynski, the original creator and writer of Babylon 5, says it is still in active development. So, yeah, dude, again, same thing. Like when I first started watching Babylon 5, when it first came out, that I lived and breathed and ate that show. I love that show so fucking much. And it was kind of like in the infancy of the internet too. So I was like on all these messenger boards and reading stuff about it. And J. Michael Straczynski himself was really good. He would be on those message boards too, like answering fan questions about what was going on and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I love that show. But it's another one of those shows, like some of the other shows that we talked about, where its audience was really fierce, but it's like Doctor Who. It was like a smaller audience, but it didn't run for 60 years like Doctor Who did. It was on TV for 5 years, and even the 5th year was like a stretch. They didn't think it was going to go a 5th year. So I would love to put Babylon 5 on this list, but it's going to be below Stargate. So there's not a whole lot. The
DS9 Babylon 5
controversy,
yeah. I think really hurt the show.
Yeah, no question.
If they had just dropped it and just let it be. And just done their own thing, but people had to yap and say this and say that, and ultimately at one point people started picking sides, because remember, back in those days you had to pick fucking sides.
Sure did.
Right? Because you couldn't be a Star Wars and a Star Trek fan, and you sure couldn't be a DS9 and a Babylon 5 fan.
Nope, you sure couldn't.
Right?
And I clearly came down on the B5 side. So
well, there you go.
As we've talked about, shitting on let me get a couple of my honorable mentions out of the way here then too. Lost in Space. I think it's important to recognize Lost in Space.
Yeah, so I'm going to take them off my list now, but Lost in Space, holy shit. Again, a show that spawned multiple different shows. The Robinsons, period.
Yep.
Let's forget Lost in Space. The Robinsons themselves, they had so many different adventures. There's so many different versions of it. Holy fuck, man. That's a show that in the new reboot is amazing.
Fantastic. If you say Danger, Will Robinson, there's a whole generation of people who know exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to give Alf a shout out just for last. Way to go, Andre.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think Lost in Space, even the original, I don't, or the reboot or whatever. I don't think either one of them is gonna crack the top 10. But influential. Talk about influential show. Absolutely, Lost in Space, hugely influential. Heroes.
Yeah.
Another show that kind of blazed a trail, showed that you could do superhero stuff on TV, which really had not been done well up until that point. Westworld, thanks, Natasha, is another one that I had thought about. Both of those shows, actually, both those shows are very, very similar, Heroes and Westworld, where they started off so fucking great and then fell off such a gigantic cliff in quality that nobody ended up finishing them out or watching them after the second season, because A, nobody had an idea what was going on anymore, and B, it's just the quality of the show had dipped so far that people just like checked out. Now I've heard some rumblings that they're talking about rebooting Heroes in some way, shape, or form. I'd be down for that. Yeah, it started well. Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. It was another one of those shows that everybody was talking about it. And then the second season came out, we're all like, oh, that second season was like nowhere as good as the first. And then the third season came out, and I'm halfway through it. I'm like, what
I don't think there was a third season.
No, I'm pretty sure there was. I think there was 4, dude.
I don't know, because I remember distinctly the second.
You don't remember it because it was
production. The second season stopped production because of the writer's strike. And then they went on. So in middle of producing, they had like a couple episodes of the first season done, and then the writer's strike happened, and then they stopped production, and then they picked back up because that writer's strike back then was a long one. It lasted almost a year, and then it was a completely different writing crew that picked up the show after that, and then it just was never the same. It sucked. You know what?
You're not wrong that it sucked. Why can't you just take me to the fucking... I just want to see how many fucking episodes there are. Episode guide, 78 episodes that encompassed 4 seasons, sir.
Okay, well, there you go.
I know. You don't remember those other 2 seasons, sir, because they were dog shit.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, just fell off a fucking cliff. But I mean, certain guys got their start on that show. Zachary Quinto is the big one, obviously. He came out of that show. Hayden Panettiere came out of that show. So... But yeah, I mean, it really showed you that it could be, and I believe it was J.J. Abrams was the producer on this thing too. So it had really good pedigree. Yeah. They were spending some money on it, and then for whatever reason, it's just the quality of that show just got so terrible. But it blazed a trail. Like I said, it showed that you could do decent superhero stuff on TV. And the funny part was, I don't think it was really based on any kind of a property or anything. So I think they just kind of like made that up for TV, and they did a really good job. So. Megan, I'm getting to that, by the way.
Yeah, we're going to get to that one very soon.
I'm also going to say Lost, and I know some of you have said that, and I think you would probably think that it would be on this list. I personally don't think so.
Another J.J. Abrams show.
Yeah, it was a network show, and it was popular, but it kind of got meandering. It went on too long, and then since it's been off the air, it's been dead. No one's doing anything with the Lost IP. It ended weird. I don't know. I don't think it has a spot on the list personally.
No.
But I thought we should at least mention it. What should be on the list, though, is, as Megan Murray said, that was one of the key ones that I've been hanging on to, is The Mandalorian.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And I think it needs to be on the list mostly because it was the first live action Star Wars show on television, and it showed that they could do Star Wars on television. Again, understand, there's no Mandalorian without Game of Thrones. A big budget, serialized, long form storytelling show that looks like a movie every week. You don't get that without Game of Thrones. But what it did for the Star Wars property, rising from the ashes of the Rise of Skywalker to make Star Wars relevant again, and Star Wars is one of the biggest IPs on planet Earth. Yeah, dude, I don't think you can even argue with The Mandalorian. Like it has to be there on that list.
They also changed a little bit how they now film these heavy special effects type show, right?
Right.
Now that they have access to the volume and this technology, it's very much changed how we mentioned Fringe earlier.
It wouldn't crack the top 10. A fantastic show. It's like The Expanse too, which is, by the way, another one that I would mention on the honorable mentions list. The Expanse is great. It's not cracking the top 10. Fringe, amazing. Love that show. Not cracking the top 10.
Fantastic show.
The Mandalorian, definitely cracking the top 10.
Yeah, 100%. Star Wars show, fantastic story. It really really brought back interest in Star Wars after a lot of people had an issue with
Michael. Get out. You're done.
The Star Wars Holiday Special is not a TV show, buddy. I'm sorry to say.
Well, yeah, it was on TV. Wasn't
it was a made-for-TV
special, right?
Christmas special.
Yeah,
it was not a TV show.
Well, I guess it wasn't a TV show. No, that's true. I guess that's
there
true.
You go.
The Mandalorian, it literally saved Star Wars at the end of the day, I think, after the mess that was the 100%. Disney trilogy there. So
100%.
Where does it go on the list?
That's a tough one for me. I don't think it's super high on the list because I don't think that, like, we're not talking about Star Wars as a general, right? Unlike Star Trek, we're not talking about Star Wars, right?
No, we're talking about a specific show.
Right. And I think there's a distinction that maybe we need to make for people that maybe don't understand this, but Star Trek started as a TV show.
Right.
That then spawned movies.
Right.
Star Wars was always movies up until the last few years now, where we're now getting Star Wars TV shows.
Yeah. The
Mandalorian being the first of. Hence why I don't think we can say Star Wars.
Right. No, I agree. No. Right? I agree with you. I think Megan and Michael are onto something. I would be tempted to put it at 8. I would probably put it ahead of Battlestar, but below Buffy. personally. I mean, now 10 years from now, if we're making this list, like after the movies come out and more seasons of the shows come out, like maybe it would be higher than that too. But
yeah,
I would be tempted to put it at 8. Mando 7 says Misty Wings. I don't think I'd put it above Buffy right now, personally.
You don't think so?
It's tough. It's tough. Yeah. By the way, why do they call him Mando and not Manda? Does this Mando sound cooler? Because he's not the Mandalorian. He's the Mandalorian. So why don't they call him Manda?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been bugging me right from the jump. Hey, Manda. Hey, they probably just worried that it would sound like Amanda. So maybe that's why. But
I don't know. That's a good question.
Not above Buffy, Megan. Don't worry. We know your love for, but we get your love for Buffy. We're good. We got it there.
Are we open to including a animated show in this?
I feel like if we open that up, that opens it up to all the animated shows, and we haven't really dipped our toe in that. Do you have one that kind of like transcends?
I have two.
Do they transcend the medium? Okay.
I think so.
What have you got?
Batman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series not only gave us our definitive Batman into Kevin Conroy, but it gave us our definitive Joker in Mark Hamill. It was a brand new style of animated show that we had never really seen before. We had never seen that style of animation before that show came along, and it spawned all of the other animated series, right? Superman and et cetera, et cetera.
So here's the problem is, so now you got X-Men, now you got Justice League Unlimited. Like everyone's going to talk about their favorite superhero cartoon, and I just feel like there's so many of them, and so many of them were so well done. I don't know that we could be like that. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, good choice of Batman the Animated Series. Again, I lived and breathed that show, but I feel like there has to be, an animated top 10. I think is something we're going to have to do anyways. Okay. My other idea for this was top 10 cartoons, so I think it would be on that one. What was your other one, by the way? I'm curious.
Rick and Morty.
Yeah, same thing.
Rick and Morty.
We'd really piss Megan off if we put Rick and Morty on.
I feel like Rick and Morty did something that nobody's ever done before in the way that they did their first few seasons, and then they basically, when they worked that contract out, I don't know how they did it, but it was 100 episodes in their contract that they signed on for. I think at the time was the longest contract ever.
God, no, please, no, I hate that show. Yes, Megan, we know you hate Rick and Morty. It's okay. You're allowed to hate what you hate.
Yeah, you're allowed to be wrong as well.
You're also allowed to be wrong. That's correct. Yeah. That show has literally, like, sitting in my basement by myself with headphones on, laughing out loud at what I'm watching. You know how rare it is for me to actually laugh out loud by myself when I'm watching something like that? There have been so many moments in that show where I've done that. So,
I don't think I have anything else that's going to crack the top 10 here, but I do have a couple more honorable mentions.
The only one that I don't have any more honorable mentions. The only one that I have left that could potentially crack the top 10 is Stranger Things.
So I have that as one of my honorable mentions. I feel like a lot of the shows in the top 10 that we have right now are shows that had a specific cultural impact, where Stranger Things, everybody loved Stranger Things, but I don't think Stranger Things had the impact on a whole demographic that Xena had. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it, like, I don't know that I can justify putting that above any of these choices.
What do you guys in the chat think? Because I was kind of in the same boat, but I love Stranger Things. Yeah, we all love it, but does it belong in a top 10 geeky TV shows of all time? Stranger Things would be around 10 or 11, I think, says Megan Murray.
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
If it's that low, then there's not really any point. Like, the list as it stands now is pretty solid, I would say. I don't know that when the Stranger Things cast came to Fan Expo, they broke Fan Expo. They sure did. Boy, howdy, did they ever.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
In the current zeitgeist, it's an extraordinarily popular thing. 5 years from now, is it going to be an extraordinarily popular thing? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, it made David Harbour a star. It made Finn Wolfhard a star. It made Millie Bobby Brown a star. Like, it launched careers. It was so good. but yeah, it's one of those shows where like it's kind of standing on the shoulders of what came before, and it's probably going to spawn a bunch of pretenders after it as well if it hasn't already. So
Ashley is basically saying the same thing, right? I think it was good, but not different enough or special enough to talk about in 20, 30 years.
right,
You know,
right, yeah.
it's not going to be like Star Trek that I don't think. I could be completely wrong. Maybe we'll have 14 spinoffs and
yeah, who knows? I don't know. Yeah. With the Netflix shows, you never know, right? Sometimes when Netflix drops it, they're just like this is dead to me now. So
well, that's the thing, right? So yeah. So
Yeah.
okay. And then that was it for your list?
I think so. I don't think I have anything else.
So there's a couple things. For one, we don't have any superhero shows on this list.
I wanted to avoid that specifically because if we got in there, it would start to dominate the list, and I think we should probably have our own separate list of superhero shows.
100%.
Right? The only one we talked about was Heroes, which is not even on the list anyway. So.
Yeah, I do think we need to mention one Daredevil. First of all, Daredevil's coming back as Daredevil Born Again. It's in production right now. John Bernthal is coming back as the Punisher. Vincent D'Onofrio is coming back as Kingpin, etc., etc. Daredevil was peak Netflix Marvel shows.
No, it was the best of those shows. There's no question for sure.
As far as superhero TV shows, Daredevil is hard to beat. I think the only one that also bears or needs to we need to mention is the Flash. The
From
Flash
the Arrowverse shows?
The Arrowverse on its back for fucking as long as I can remember. I feel like the Flash was carrying the Arrowverse before the Flash was even its own TV show. The minute they introduced the character in Arrow, that was it. That Arrowverse obviously spawned a bunch of spin-offs. None of them worked like the Flash. I think, we should at least mention it. Finally, there's a big one we didn't mention that also got a reboot. It was very, very popular when me and you were young. I'm surprised you didn't have it on your list either. Quantum Leap.
Not a fan. Didn't enjoy it.
Really?
Nope.
Really?
I watched the shit out of Sliders. I loved Sliders.
It's basically the same show, but
I know.
yeah.
But no, was not a huge guy for that. So
interesting. I
think at the end of the day, it was too like the sci-fi element was like the MacGuffin, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't really like it wasn't a sci-fi show. It was a drama.
Correct.
Right. So I don't
stories weren't based in sci-fi like
right.
Sliders was because Sliders went to different parallel universes.
Mm.
So you saw all sorts of things where you're right. Quantum Leap. Once he was in that person's body, it was a love story or an action story.
That's what I mean. So it was kind of like,
yeah.
What about Charmed? Well, I mean, if we're talking about a young, impressionable Jeff enjoying a show, absolutely. Not because it was good. Not a fan of Quantum Leap. No, I don't feel. What's funny about Quantum Leap is I did find it was more. And by the way, this is a different time, guys, so don't like fucking light me up for this. But it was more geared toward a female demographic than a male demographic. I find for that type of show because every week it's exactly what Jess was talking about. It was just a weekly drama show that happened to have like a MacGuffin that was him leaping into these other lives, but he always had like some sort of a problem to solve. In a lot of cases, it was like you had the power in you all along, or like you fell in love with a girl, or you made it to the prom. It was always like these feel good things that he stepped into this person's life to make happen. So it was kind of like, it was almost soapy at the end of the day.
It was a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't have the soap format.
No. But just how it was presented.
Format, but yeah. See what you're saying.
Michael mentioned V. Absolutely. V, the original miniseries, when it happened, you want to talk about a show that everybody was talking about? Everybody was talking about V at the time. Everybody was watching that miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that got mentioned above that I wanted to shout out to was Greatest American Hero. Nate mentioned that. You want to talk about dating themselves. The original television superhero show, Greatest American Hero. Fantastic song that was along with that one, the theme song and stuff. Again, same thing. Like our buddy Doug actually does a cosplay of the Greatest American Hero, and I love it. That's
right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But again, moment in time, right? There's two entire generations when we say Greatest American Hero, they have no fucking idea what we're talking about. So I get that. So 80s reboot of War of the Worlds. That one was a little bit weird. And then we could go off on like Andromeda, that Kevin Sorbo, that weird fucking sci-fi show. Farscape, someone mentioned way earlier.
Farscape
I fucking loved Farscape. When I saw that, I was like, live budget sci-fi with puppets? What are you doing? And then I started watching it on a lark because I was bored one day. I'm like, oh my God, this is fucking great. Like, it was such a cool show. But again, it's not going to hit the top 10. It's not. I keep hearing that they're looking to reboot Farscape, but I don't know. Knight Rider, I don't know. The car was cool and kind of futuristic. I don't know that I would call Knight Rider fantasy or sci-fi.
Not really. As a kid, Knight Rider was my favorite TV show.
Yeah. Everybody loved Knight Rider when we were kids.
Not
all the boys wanted to be, you wanted to be
show.
Michael Knight. You wanted that cool big fucking hair and the shitty leather jacket and the really tight jeans that showed off his package. You absolutely wanted to be that. Farscape, I need to find it. Yeah. Great show. Just and a really well Lex, a Canadian.
I was just
made.
say, do you remember Lex?
Lex, I really enjoyed Canadian co-production of a Canadian show. I think it was co-produced like with Germany or something like that. Weird, wild show. Sexy too. Yeah, definitely enjoyed for Lex quite a bit. I think it was on like City TV when they would shoot back in the day.
It was a UK co-production.
UK was it? Yeah.
It was Global Sci-Fi Channel, Chum, and Channel 5 from the UK.
Yes. Yeah.
Sci-Fi
Very. The car drove by itself. Andre, we can do that now. Lex was so good. I don't know if so good is where I would go with that, but it was definitely unique and weird and quirky and bizarre and all those things. And yeah, and it has some sex appeal to it too. So, but yeah, not top 10. Like all those are super cool shows, but none of that
Dark
stuff.
Matter.
Yeah, not top 10.
Definitely not top 10. Earth Final Conflict. That was a good one.
Someone else mentioned Space Above and Beyond. Love that show. I was
going to say Space Above and Beyond.
Yep.
Andromeda, you mentioned.
Yep. Andromeda was brutal, by the way. Awful show. Don't watch that.
Yeah, it wasn't the best show.
It was not good. It was
the Dune TV show.
Well, there was a mini series on TV.
No, there was a full-blown TV show.
JS, brother, please click on that. I'm almost positive it was not a weekly TV show. I think Sci-Fi did like a TV movie series, basically. But yeah, it's a mini series. Yeah, they didn't do a weekly like seasonal Dune show.
Let me see how many episodes. I remember this show very well.
Yeah, Dune miniseries was 2 of them. Is what Lex is saying. Yeah, I think they did Dune and then Children of Dune, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Farscape was great. Lex was weird and my parents wouldn't let me watch it, nor should they. By the way, the show itself was like rated R, essentially. Like it was edited for Canadian television. If you find the original cuts of the show, there's like nudity and shit in the show. It's not like not
Lex.
Yes.
Well, Lex was filmed here.
Wherever it was filmed, Google it right now. Google uncensored Lex. Trust me, there were all kinds of nude scenes that they had to cut for putting it on TV. So I guess when they showed it either in the UK, I don't know why I keep thinking Germany, but I think when I looked it up, that's what they were saying. They had it completely uncut for German television. I was like, all right, cool. Why don't I live in Germany?
Guys, I am gonna have to cut this off because my PC's just told me it's about to reboot on us. So we need.
Well, it's like 25 after 8 anyway. We gotta wrap.
Yeah, we need to wrap this up. Jeff, do you want to go over the final list? I'm surprised.
I'm sure I'm sure people are gonna be pissed off. Top 10 geeky TV shows. Number 1, Star Trek. Fuck you if you thought it was gonna be anything else. Number 2, Game of Thrones. Number 3, The X-Files. Number 4, The Twilight Zone. Number 5, Supernatural. Number 6, Doctor Who. Number 7 is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Number 8 is The Mandalorian. Number 9 is Battlestar Galactica. And number 10 is Xena Warrior Princess. You guys rock, says Lex. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know that there was that many on here that were like super controversial. I don't know if I'm going to be getting a message from Nada a month from now going, I'm still mad at this list, like she was with the movie quotes one. So I think this one we might have been all right. Chuck being 12 is hilarious.
Is hilarious. Let's be honest. A lot of these honorable mentions that we mentioned probably went above Chuck, if we're 100% honest. But
Lex was definitely pornish. I agree. Happy with this list. Well, clearly we're doing something wrong. We should start fucking with it to make people mad.
I know. I'm gonna move.
You can't leave it like with people. Yeah. No, if you move Buffy, don't come to May the 4th because Megan will come and knife you. Like I'm surprised she's okay with it being 7. So.
Guys, before we go, thanks again so much for watching. We love having you guys here. We do always love the interaction in the chat. May the 4th, don't forget.
Big time.
It's going to be an awesome time, so you better
Hell
be there because what a party that's going to be. Anything else that you want to mention before we close this off?
CK Expo. CK Expo is the weekend before May the 4th. So not this weekend, but next, the 27th and the 28th in Chatham, Kent at the John D. Bradley Center. Saturday and Sunday, I will be there both days. So there is a cosplay contest. I'm doing a panel talking about cosplay contest, and I'm also going to be interviewing the big guest there, Jeanette Goldstein. You may know her as Vasquez from Aliens, the best sci-fi action movie of all time. So it should be a good time.
Some mics and camera or something, so you can.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get some video on that. So be there for CK Expo in Chatham, Kent. Ideally, you go for 2 days. It's the 10th anniversary. By the way, that con is a nonprofit run for charity. So you'll be supporting a good cause as well. You can get single day tickets. You can get weekend tickets. I think they have a contest right now on their socials for winning 4 weekend passes to CK Expo.
Oh, well, there you go.
Come on out for that. That's going to be fun. But then, yeah, obviously, and then it's all about May the 4th, guys. All the vendors have been signed. We have all 10 of them. All the money's been collected for their table fees. That's all going directly to the charity. We've got the raffle stuff. We're going to be picking up a lot of that stuff tomorrow. We're going to start putting together packages for that. And then, of course, the beer. The light lemon lager that they're going to be brewing for us, 50 cents of which every single beer sold is going to go to the charity as well. We want to give Dad Club London on in conjunction with Ronald McDonald House as much as we possibly can this year. The goal is $1,000. Help us get there.
So make sure you come,
support the
drink
cause.
a lot of beer.
And or even if you're not a beer drinker, but you know somebody who is, buy a 6-pack and bring it to them. Like just spend the money.
Oh,
so that money goes to the beer and goes.
Because you can do that.
Absolutely.
You don't have to like buy an open beer. It's not like at a bar where it has to.
No. Buy cans.
Brewery, you can buy a pack of cans and bring it with you.
Yes.
And
by the way, I'd recommend it because last year they're brewing more of it this year, but those cans sold out in a fucking hurry last year, and there were people that were legitimately upset they didn't get a can. So make sure you get there early enough and buy yourself a couple of cans because once they're gone, they're gone.
I'm pretty sure we sold out before 7 o'clock last year.
I'm almost positive we did. I don't remember. Did the cans go first or did the keg go dry first? I want to say
the cans went first.
The cans went first, yeah.
Yeah, the cans went very early. The only reason I got a can is because you had picked up a 6-pack ahead of time for me.
That's right.
Remember, you had gone the night before and you had grabbed us a couple of 6-packs.
Yes, sir.
I think one for me and one for Rob or whatever.
I think so. Yeah.
And because otherwise we wouldn't have got any. We were drinking out of the tap, and even that by 7, that tap was dry.
Yeah, it's gone. So, yeah. Oh crap, Chatham Kent. Yes, Tim, be there for Chatham Kent. Not this weekend, but next. So we'll see you guys there. Hopefully, otherwise, we'll see you May 4th, and then after that, we'll see when we see you.
Well, probably next week. You know, we do.
Oh yeah. No, of course. But I mean, live. We'll see when we
go. So stay geeky, guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Geek Boutique Podcast. Like always, if you prefer to listen to us, you can find us on all major podcast platforms. Now, make sure you don't forget to click that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell to make sure you never miss anything.